So my name's Jenny. I am a mid-core crafter. I don't venture out very far past my Cricut, but I try to come up with cool, nerdy, crafty ideas, whether that be cosplays, home decor, drinkware, but just coming up with like cool, easy crafts to do that you can either give as gifts or keep for yourself. Be selfish like me and just have a hoard pile like the ladies from Labyrinth. That's a reference you don't get, Andrew. It's pre-game spooky season where like Home Goods and like Michaels is dropping all of their cool Halloween stuff. And that only happens for like, there's only a brief, probably 3-week window that I've noticed. And I noticed it last year because of TikTok. People find cool shit at Michaels and it only lasts for like 3 weeks. Like last year there was these cool cloches like back there, but it's like a crystal ball that it's blurry, doesn't matter. And yeah, so TikTok has basically made Halloween like a contact sport now, where there's only cool spooky shit for a very limited time. And last year, Michaels had this like really cool 46-inch, I only remember it because I just finished this, 46-inch coffin yard sign. And it's just like plain plywood, balsa wood, I'm bad with wood, but it's just plain wood. And it's got a piece of twine on top of it. Basically, you can do whatever you want with it. And I saw it on TikTok last year. So I wanted to buy it and make my fiance, Andrew, the guy behind the camera, a bath board, like what you put across the bathtub. Like what bougie women who like a glass of wine and a book put over the bathtub, because my fiance is a bath person, which we have yet to address. I was like, oh, I can make you this cool bath board that I saw on TikTok. And you shot me down entirely and told me like, I'm never gonna use this. And it's like, I could do something super cool with this. So stared at it, sketched, thought, and I found out that I could turn this into like a badass clock. So if you wanna make this project, you've gotta do it like right now, or have a super crafty fiance slash boyfriend slash partner slash girlfriend slash whoever you're with to make you a coffin like those. And, or you can go on Michaels and they have the 3.5 foot tall coffin sign. I literally, like, we wanted to do this last year, but they sold out so quickly that it was absolutely pointless. It's like, well, now I'm just rubbing it in that I got this super cool thing that nobody else got. And I think the bright side to doing this project again this year has actually given me a couple opportunities to improve it from where it was. So there's like, this is how I specifically did it, but I can think of at least like 50 different ways. Hyperbole, but there's different colors. I can run down my materials. Basically, you could seal it, you couldn't seal it. Like even between the 2 times I've done this, a year ago and then now, there's little things that I did that I would or wouldn't do again. I'm just gonna baseline what I did, and then if it's optional, I'll get my little optional flag out and tell you. The one thing I've been harping on is the coffin sign from Michaels. That would be the first thing you kind of need. And whether or not you make the coffin yourself or you get it sourced from Michaels, the way they have it, it's about, oh, math, 42 inches? 42 inches. We'll see. 42 inches, math. Okay, so this one is like, the project file that I actually have is actually scaled to 46. I've also adjusted it for 42 for the coffin that's there at Michaels, if you can get it. They won't ship it. It's trash. It's trash that they won't ship it. Regardless, last year to get the second coffin, I had to drive an hour. And I don't want everyone to have to drive an hour to get a wooden coffin. So if you're going to source it from Michaels, hurry up. If you're not, hopefully you're craftier than I am. So the next thing I used specifically was my Cricut, or any other craft cutter that's out there. Again, this is kind of where it goes into like, if you're craftier, you could freehand paint it. I'm not, I just cut the vinyl, why not? Which then leads into, I also used permanent vinyl Oracle
651
specifically, because that's what the skilled cricketers on TikTok have told me to use, and I don't question it. So that's also at Michaels. So far, like everything I've listed you can source from Michaels at this point. You also will need, you'll also need black paint or whatever color paint you want to be your backdrop. The higher quality, in my opinion, the better. For the initial one I did, I used, I believe it's called Craft Smart from, it is? That's what you've got.
Film the B-roll.
That's the only way I can get you to remember names is if you film it.
I'm very visual.
So it's a Craft Smart paint that they have at Michael's that's like dirt cheap. I think it's $6 for this big of a bottle and like $1 for the itty bitty one. I'd get the bigger bottle. But on the one I did this year, I actually used Black 2.0. His, basically the black paint that is so matte that it doesn't show up on camera, which is probably great with the blurry camera angle. I don't know if you can tell if it has any sort of depth at all. Up close you can see the differences, but this year going with a higher quality paint that was like 20 bucks a bottle for the same size, I did notice a difference and that was worth it to me. An optional thing you can include, talking about the paint and the vinyl and everything else, you could include a sealant like Mod Podge. I actually resin coated the one I did last year, which was a whole other process. Fiance loves me for it because he loves the smell of resin. And I didn't do it again this year specifically because of the Black 2.0 paint I used, because anything on top of it, to me, it ruins the illusion, and I don't think it helps the blackness of it, because it's technically like the blackest paint ever. And last two things you'll need, besides the optional sealer, last two things you'll need is clock hardware, which I don't know if they have it at Michael's, but you can certainly source on Amazon, and a drill. Something to put a hole in a piece of wood. So I don't know if that's a nail or whatever else. We used our drill. I was lazy. I don't think that's lazy. That's if you, yeah.
That's normal.
Yeah, pretty normal.
People use drills.
People should have drills. That's your very.
Plug for Ryobi, the only tool you need. That wasn't in place, but here it is. Ryobi, sponsor us.
You were at C2E2. You can sponsor us. Cricut, Ryobi, Craft Smart, Michael's, Boeing. The materials for this project, a majority of them you should either have at home or be able to source relatively easily, minus the coffin. The coffin will sell out. So there's kind of, it will take you a weekend. I think the first one took me a bit longer, again, because of the sealant. But yeah, I got the second one done where I just did paint and vinyl, 3 days. It took it long, like the longest part of the project was paint drying. So step number one for this, specifically if you get the Michael sign, not if you make it at home, is you've got to cut the rope off the back of it. You don't have to, but it's helpful. It keeps it out of the way, makes life easy. You can cut it off. One note on that, it is a bitch to cut off. If you're watching the clip of my fiance and I struggling to rip it off the back, that is no joke. That was probably, what, cool 7 minutes of our life that we'll never get back. So yeah, the rope and the staples are made of hatred. You can just honestly cut it off the top. And the clock hardware that you use, if you use the same one that I had on Amazon, which I'll link below, it should push it far enough off the wall that you don't have to pull out the staples. Okay, next is wipe off any dust and paint the entire front of the coffin black. So this coffin that I actually had, I've had since last year. We've moved homes, and I just have had it sitting in our garage for a year. So I had to wipe it off. It's usually just good practice whenever you paint literally anything to wipe it off, just to make sure there's no dust. I forgot to do it in between steps this time. It almost screwed me over on my vinyl, so always in between coats, in between everything, make sure you keep your coffin clean. Super morbid. It sounds so morbid. And you're gonna need multiple coats of paint. I think we'll only show you one. We recorded one, but you'll need two. What I did with this one that I think made sense, because I had two black paints sitting around. I started with the Craft Smart, and then my second coat I did the Black 2.0. And that kind of simplified the process a little bit. So that way I didn't have to put an additional coat on there. So next step is to cut your vinyl decals. I went overboard, but that's because I liked it and that was my original sketch. I will include the link below to all my SVG files that I did for this project. So that way that kind of makes life easier. Or if you are gonna freehand paint it, God forbid, you'll have a frame of reference to work from. I tried doing, there's this tip on TikTok where it's like if you use a lint roller, you can get out all the little easy bits of your vinyl decal. And I was trying to record that last night, So literally when I first did it, and we have it documented, it's on the GoPro, I rolled over it with a lint roller, it just tore everything up, and it's like, God damn it, so I had to cut it again. Shit. If you know any weeding tricks, comment below. The other piece of advice I give you, measure your coffin. I worked with a 46-inch coffin, and done it twice now. I actually sized down my vinyl decals from my previous one because I felt like it was very, very clustered together. But once you have your coffin sores, quick measure twice, cut once is the idiom. I think I measured once and got lucky. And you can use as many or as little of my files as you'd like. Again, resizing it to me made it feel a lot less cramped and crowded. That was the one thing I kind of thought about the second go around, was whether or not to opt out of like the little death moths or the hourglass with wings. And it's, as soon as I sized it down, it kind of all worked for me, but I'm also a maximalist. So there you go. Apply your decals to transfer tape and transfer to your coffin. One note on that I didn't realize is your transfer tape can leave residue on the black 2.0 paint, so be very cognizant of that when you're putting pressure on there, that you might have to go back afterwards and get off some of the sticky residue. But overall, pretty easy. Measure when you're putting on your decals, because you're gonna see and potentially hear Andrew say, "Oh God, your skull is cockeyed."
Oh, you did cockeyed.
No! But overrated. I wouldn't get done as quick if I didn't measure things.
You got it done, that's right.
Yeah, damn straight. Also, the clock is off-centered. I'm not selling it, so it's mine. It doesn't matter if it's off-centered. You could, in theory, seal it with Mod Podge resin, some other sealing process that I haven't thought of. Could epoxy, maybe epoxy. I did it last year because I used more inexpensive paint. Take that grain of salt as you will. Like the paint, I can see the grain of the wood, but this year when I used the black 2.0, you don't actually see that much wood grain behind it. So I think dependent on the quality of black paint that you use and the look that you're going for, you can put a sealant on it. I think the glossy coffin looks cool. Step 5, drill a hole in the center of the clock where you're going to insert your clock hardware. If you have a way to measure how big the little stick, little brassy bit in your clock hardware will be, that will determine how big of a hole you need to drill in your wood. That one I was able to do by myself. If you're a kid doing this, get parental supervision. Danger! Get parental supervision for this project overall. You're cutting stuff and painting and potentially using resin. Kids should not be doing this project. So then step 6 would be to assemble your clock hardware per the instructions on the packaging. If I remember correctly, for the type of hardware I had, you have to put your hanging apparatus on the motor of the clock, insert that into the hole you just drilled, put on, mine had a rubber washer, I put the rubber washer on, then there was a metal washer, put the metal washer on, and then you put hexagony bit. What's the hexagony bit?
Oh, you're talking about a nut?
Nut, then you want to screw your nut on as far as you can. You don't want to screw it on too tight because you don't want to damage the wood, but you also don't want it moving around too much. So, per your discretion, I believe I pulled out a socket wrench to tighten it reasonably. You put your batteries in and you set your clock. Step 7, pretty easy. I got this done in a weekend, but I also don't have children or responsibilities, and my fiance is super nice and knows when I'm in a crafty mood. He locks me in a room and just lets me be myself.
To be clear, she locks herself in the room. She's allowed to come out of the room.
This is the first time I've seen daylight in days. At that point, then you get your dope coffin clock that you can use to intimidate guests and put at the end of hallways. Looking back on this project, I really do think I've improved my design from year to year. I wouldn't do resin again. I would use a higher quality black paint overall to really give it that cool gothic-ish effect if that's what you're going for. So many spaces to customize this project, where you could even change it if you're more of like the pinky kind of gothy stuff and you actually want this to be a piece of home decor. You could paint it like pink or blue or whatever color you want. Just whatever high quality paint you're using will save you the stress of hopefully a sealant. Or if you live in a messy house, seal it anyway. Light coat of Mod Podge makes life easier. You could also include vinyl decals, depending on your design. Again, this is what I sketched in Procreate, so I'm biased. And you can also change the color of your vinyl. Obvious, you can just feed it into your machine, or if you're painting it, again, if you're super crafty. The last kind of customization step I could think of that you could take if you really are, if you're the hybrid between the super crafty who want to paint it yourself and you have a Cricut, you could make a stencil if you felt like it. If you're feeling wild on a Saturday night, make yourself a stencil and paint it on there while it's still wet. I'm not going to advise you on how to do that. I suck at stencils if it's not with etching cream on glass. That would be your last opportunity to further customize that I can think of. And when you're done, you have a super cool piece of wall decor. So below, I'm gonna link a lot of the materials I used for this project. I'll link the Michael's coffin. Again, you can't buy it online. You actually have to go in store. But also if you unfortunately miss out on it, it will give you the measurements for the coffin used, which is always helpful. Again, craftier people than I, super woodworkers can make this themselves. I'll include a link below to download my SVG files for my Cricut. So you can either use that to reference from or actually cut yourselves. Remember to resize them. Lastly, I'm gonna put a donate button because this was a super fun project to make. And if you like super fun projects like this going forward, a little bit of money always helps to source. I think my fiance counts the number of times I go to Michael's in a month. And if there's a donate button, he tends to overlook 1 or 2 of those trips. But donations are not necessary. That shouldn't be a barrier to doing this project any further, but they are appreciated. That way I can come up with cool, nerdy, spooky shit going forward. I would always appreciate that. And happy crafting, lukewarm crafting.